Kevin Gordon here from Autosavant.com with a video review of the 2012 Honda Fit. For 2012, the Fit is very similar to last year with a few updates and changes. The largest set of updates are actually in where you can't see them. They're sound deadening in the firewall up under the front end. Some of this glass in the front is also thicker and better acoustically damped in an attempt to make the Fit quieter on the highway. Other changes are, I believe, this steering wheel's new for the year, the center console with the cup holders, and this area back here is updated, and that's about it. Everything else is a carryover from the year before. The model we're in is the Fit Sport. The sport aspect of the Fit doesn't get you anything different in the powertrain. What it does add is a rear stabilizer bar to hopefully make it understeer a little bit less at the limit. You do get steering wheel mounted controls, paddle shifters to control the 5-speed automatic transmission that's in this one. All of this can be yours for $17,760 plus a $770 destination fee for a sticker price of right around $18,500. So what impressions have we had of the Fit so far? Well, I can tell you this. It's one of the few cars that I've driven that I've started to like more the longer that I drive it. And that may sound actually a little bit better than it is, because to be honest, when I first started driving the Fit, first day or so, I was reasonably disappointed. It's a larger issue, I think, of my opinion of what's going on with Honda these days, and the fact that they used to be a leader in engine technology, and these days it just feels like they're falling farther and farther behind. But, you know, from a seating position in here, the one thing the Fit has going for it is such an open greenhouse, you know, of all of these subcompacts and compacts, because the Fit competes with a wide variety of cars at this point. It's a very flooded field. Anyway, back on to the difference, I think, in this compared to a lot of those is it's got this really open greenhouse and a pretty low belt line, you know, along the driver's window, which does make it feel very open and airy in here compared to some of its competition. But from a seating position, you know, the steering wheel is manually both tilting and telescoping, which is a good thing. It does allow me at least to get into a reasonably comfortable driving position. The one thing that's missing is any kind of height adjustment from the seat. I'd love to be able to lower the seat a little bit in this thing, since it's reasonably high, to get that drop to your legs. And I think the thigh support in this car is a little bit shorter than I typically like. You know, I would love to see a little bit more bolster in here, but for people with much shorter inseams, I'm sure they've decided to make that compromise there. The really positive impressions of the Fit are in its dynamics. It's got electric power steering, but it is, I can just honestly say, it's the best in its class as far as its steering feel. You know, it's not dead off center. It's got good feedback as to what's going on. You know, the economy tires underneath it don't give you absolute understanding of what's happening at the wheels, but it's firm without being under boosted. It's not over boosted. It's direct. It's the best electric power steering and the best really steering feel of any of these subcompact cars. The other thing that are very good are the brakes. This brake pedal, despite being discs up front and drums in back, is very good. You know, during hard braking, so almost emergency stopping in traffic situations, you know, initially it doesn't have that like German Volkswagen hard pedal bite right at the top, but as you get into the pedal, it really is firm and very linear from a braking feeling perspective. The other thing the Fit has going for it is it's one of the most European looking of the Hondas, and I think actually it's the most European of all of them if you get to see what Civics look like in Europe. And to me, that's a positive. I think Honda, you know, of course with Acura, they've taken some flack for their beak noses on them and buck teeth. This car does look like a Japanese car, but to me that's not a bad thing. You know, at least it's got some kind of character from what it looks like from the outside. And here's some pictures that we took in the time that we had with it. The other great trick the Fit has are what I believe they call their magic rear seats. So there's just a grab handle in here and it automatically falls right to the floor. Fold and tumble. Put this back up. You also get the ability to flip up the rear seat, which gives you a very nice opening into the car there. The thing I can tell you is the latch anchors are actually up higher in this than in some cars they normally are, which makes them much easier to put car seats into. And also the hatch opens nice and high, which means for somebody like me who's 6'1", it's not an effort to duck underneath it. So I'll give you an idea again, and even from back here, you fold those flat and you really do get a nice big opening into the back of that. I actually took this instead of the long-term test EcoBoost F-150 to Home Depot one day to pick up, you know, pieces of medium density fiberboard. Now they weren't 4x8 sheets, but still they were pieces big enough that in a small sedan you wouldn't have had a chance to carry, and in this it swallowed them with no problem. So it's a bit of a letdown in the Fit. Unfortunately, there's a decent bit. You know, the 1.5 liter engine that's in the Fit is rated at 117 horsepower. And when the Fit first came out back in, I believe, 2006, it was really a sporty, fun little thing to drive. But as it evolved into its next iteration, that's basically here, it of course grew in all sizes, and it did gain a little bit of horsepower, but the 117 horsepower engine, especially with the automatic, does let it down. I mean, it's not really revvy, it doesn't have a ton of grunt, you don't get any of that sort of top-level VTEC throw that you do in some of the other Hondas. It's, in my opinion, just underpowered. You know, you compare it to like the Accent that we had a few weeks ago with 138 horsepower. That car's more engaging from an engine perspective to drive. Again, this from a steering feel and a braking perspective and even a handling and ride perspective is better. About that, there's no doubt. Other things that are a bit of a letdown, you know, this interior is fully hard plastic. They didn't really even bother to try to put any kind of grating in it. It just is slabs of hard plastic up here. The biggest omission as far as features go, there's no Bluetooth in the Sport version. You know, the Sport gets you upgraded things like touch controls in the stereo, but you have to buy nav to be able to get Bluetooth phone connectivity, which in today's world is really, I think, a little bit short-sighted. The automatic works as expected, but it's not necessarily quick to, you know, shift down if you really stomp on it. It has a sport mode, which basically keeps it holding its revs a little bit more, and keeps it from, I think, shifting at a third gear on the 5-speed automatic transmission on the highway. It does have paddle shifters, which, even though I'm a person who will use paddle shifters on an automatic transmission because I like to have more control over what's going on than the computer, really aren't all that necessary. I don't think most people who buy this car will find themselves using them. The one big plus is in pure drive, if you pull on the downshift trigger, it will downshift to a lower gear. The rest of the controls in here from a layout perspective are fine. There's one knob for volume, but not a knob for tuning. You're down to buttons for tuning. It's one of those things that I don't know why they just can't keep two knobs. One for tuning, one for volume. The HVAC controls over here on the driver's side are big chunky things which work well. You know, they're a little bit further away from the passenger, but in a car that you can easily reach over and tap the passenger door on, I don't think it's going to be that hard for the passenger to reach over and get them. Couple little annoyances. It does have a place to plug in your iPod, some kind of USB port. That's great, because there's only one 12-volt outlet in this, which, if you're like us and you carry around a radar detector, leaves you without another place to plug in an accessory. It's true you could go get a splitter, but in today's world it'd be nice to always at least have two 12-volt outlets, either one back here or somewhere else down there. The other thing is you can't see it on the video, but the iPhone connector is in the glove box, which means that if you want to keep your iPhone plugged in and keep it charging as you're driving, you always have a cable that's got to be hanging out of your glove box, because today's world, I guess some of you out there might still have an old school iPod that you just leave in there all the time with your library of songs on, but it's a little bit, short-sighted not to have the USB port either down here or somewhere up on the stereo. To give you guys some driving impressions, some external video, show you that, again, from a dynamics perspective, the fit is as good as anything in its class. The steering is well weighted, as I said. The brakes feel good. Turn-in's good. It ultimately just understeers anywhere close to what would be the limit. I think the thing that ultimately lets this down just a little bit is the engine. I don't understand how Honda has fallen this far behind in, the powertrain perspective. It's only a 5-speed, where a lot of the competitions these days has got at least 6 gears to go through. Even the manual's still only a 5-speed. Along the engine lines as well, fuel economy has been not ultra impressive. I've seen 28 miles per gallon in mixed driving, and that really has been a fair mix of highway and city, and I haven't really been abusive to this. Again, compared to the Accent that I had a few weeks ago, where I saw a combined number above 30 while really not being all that nice to it. I think that it goes again to the fact that the little 1.5 in this is doing a lot of work to keep it moving even on the highway. The Fit's definitely competitive in its segment. It's worth a drive. This open greenhouse in here really does make it not feel like a tiny car, even though it's as small as anything in its class. But I think the big difference is where in 2006 or 2007, when people would have asked me what, small economical car would you go out and buy, the Fit would have been absolutely my first suggestion. Where in today's world, it becomes a much more complex question. With some of the other brands, you get better warranties, you get more features for your money. It's tough, but I still would say the Fit's worth a drive and worth consideration. I'm Kevin Gordon from Autosavant.com, and I look forward to talking to you guys soon.